Hey everybody, Andy Kvernen here with another Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. You know, it's the summer right now, and I, like everybody in Wisconsin, loves the summer. And it's a great time to get outside and to enjoy some different things, a different change of pace. And in many ways, I thrive on that. I consider myself a creative, and so I love doing things differently and shaking things up. But one of my realities is that I tend to thrive best in routine when it comes to my relationship with Jesus. And so I do best when I have the same time to sit in the same chair and turn on the same lamp and feel the sun through the same window in my house, and I tend to just do best in my walk with God when I can have that time in the morning with the Lord. And one of the realities in the summer is that time often gets kind of confronted or shaken up, and whether it's having to be somewhere different, to take a kid to summer school, or whatever, it just gets shaken up. But I've noticed over the last month that's been the case for me. And over the last few days, I've just been enjoying trying to renew that commitment to that routine, and that's been helpful. And it reminds me of a guy in the New Testament. Of course, we've been in the book of Acts, and the Apostle Paul is the central character, and no doubt he'll be the central character again today in Acts 23. But Paul was missional. Paul was driven to and called of God to bring the gospel to the nations, and he's doing that. But there were times in Paul's ministry where we get indications of discouragement. And I want to bring to you to one of those times, and I think in many ways it's in part because Paul was out of his routine, and he couldn't help it. It just was what it was, but it was discouraging for him, and the Lord shows up in a powerful way. So look at this, Acts 23. We're going to start in verse 9. Paul is on trial for proclaiming the gospel in Jerusalem. And there's this debate amongst the Pharisees and the Sadducees about the resurrection. And Paul sort of incites the debate a little bit with the comment that he makes. But things get crazy, and all of a sudden there's this uproar. And we pick it up in verse 9 of chapter 23 in the book of Acts. There was a great uproar, and some of the teachers of the law, who were Pharisees, stood up and argued vigorously. "We find nothing wrong with this man," they said. "What if a spirit or an angel has spoken to him?" And the dispute became so violent that the commander was afraid Paul would be torn to pieces by them. He ordered the troops to go down and take him away from them by force and bring him into the barracks. Okay, so here the disputes become so violent. The commander, the guy in charge there, is worried that Paul's going to get ripped to shreds. I mean, it's a crazy mess. And so Paul gets taken back to the barracks, and he's out of his routine, and not only that, he's also threatened significantly. And we get the indication that Paul is discouraged, and here's why I say that. Verse 11, "The following night, the Lord stood near Paul and said, 'Take courage.'" The Lord recognized, look, I think Paul's getting discouraged. He's been through some trauma here. I want to come alongside him, and I want to remind him of something. And the first thing I want to do is to tell him to take courage, but I want him to do that because I'm here. I'm with him. And it's fascinating to me, friends, as Paul goes out to fulfill the Great Commission, and that's what he's doing, Matthew 28, 18 and 19. "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Spirit." But Paul's out fulfilling the Great Commission. But here, as he's doing that, the Lord demonstrates the promise that he had made in that commission. Because you remember verse 20 from chapter 28 in Matthew? What did Jesus say? He said, "Lo, I will be with you always, even to the end of the age." Well, guess what? Here, as Paul is proclaiming the gospel, as he's out making disciples, Jesus demonstrates what he promised. In fact, the NIV indicates when the text says the Lord here, it's a reference to Jesus. The red letters here give us a clue. And Jesus says, "Look, Paul, take courage. I know you're discouraged. I know you're out of your routine. I know you're struggling here in this moment, but guess what? I'm with you." Jesus says, "Take courage. As you've testified about me in Jerusalem, so you must also testify in Rome." In other words, look, Paul, your story's not going to end here. I'm not going to let these people harm you. They're not going to take your life. You're going to go and do other things for me. And guess what? I'm going to be with you in that also. Friends, maybe you're out of your routine this morning. Maybe you're struggling in different ways. By indication of you listening to the Cornerstone Connection, perhaps you're in a good routine. Either way, I want to remind you, friends, that Jesus backs up what he promises. and Jesus is with you. And so for me, how I've focused on being with Jesus just the last few mornings is to just get quiet. And there's an app that I've been using called the Pause app, that Pause, that's just helped my focus and helped remind me that Jesus is with me. And in that's given me a great place to read His Word and to study and to pray. And so I pray today that as you're out on mission, as you're out doing what you're doing in the community, with your family, at work, representing Jesus to a dying world, you'd remember the promise that Jesus made, "Lo, I will be with you always, even to the end of the age," is a promise Jesus intends to keep. Let's open our eyes and let Jesus be with us today. God bless you, friends, and Lord willing, we'll see you again soon on the Cornerstone Connection.